It was the late 1950s to 1960s, and the post office in Sherwood Content, Trelawny was a meeting place.
It was a place where people who have issues to deal with the public and to make announcements, they would use that as a platform, because it was on a high elevation. You had about 8 or 9 steps from this road surface to go up to the top of the, the level where they would stand and make their announcements or make their speech. Now, there were other organizations other than politicians who used that platform to keep meetings. Any organization, local organizations that had issues to discuss with the villagers, they would announce it in the village, and their time of meeting, they would congregate there and use that as a base from which to speak.
Tell me about regular post office business.
Well, post office opens at 8:30 to 9 a.m. Monday to Friday, and there was a resident postmistress. She always is there. That's her job, to run the post office, and people would go in from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. to collect their mails. But if someone was passing and didn't know there was mail there, the postmistress would call them off the street and said, "Come and get your mail. You have mail." And so they would go and have their mail delivered to them. And that was part of running the post office business. And it would be closed at 5 p.m. sharp each day, business day.
Can you tell me a little bit about the postmistress?
The postmistress was a person who was not a native Sherwood person, but became a citizen of Sherwood by marriage, because she was married to a minister of the church in Sherwood, and so she became part of the church community and the community as a whole. Very quiet person, and she had her family right there. After she was married, she began to have a family, and so she was a very quiet, unassuming lady, sort of a light-skinned lady, very unassuming.
Can you explain the process of a telegram delivery?
Well, telegrams were sent to the post office on a regular basis, I should say, because people who have their relatives abroad or in other areas of the country, in Jamaica, they would send a telegram to their relatives in Sherwood whenever they have an emergency. A telegram always indicate that someone is having an emergency, and they want their relatives to be informed of this emergency, so they could have their issues or their emergency resolved with their relatives knowing of their situation. Now, there was one lady who delivered the telegram. She was like a resident telegram person who takes a telegram from the office. I think she was commissioned by the postmistress to do this job, and she would, no matter what time of day or night, she would be called upon to take the telegram to wherever it is in the village that telegram was to be delivered. And usually the telegram would have to be delivered before the next day. And so she would go, if she had to walk all night, she would walk all night until she got it delivered. She would get a receipt. She'd get a fee for it from the person who could collect the telegram, and then she would return to the post office to show the receipt to prove that she had delivered the telegram.
What was the business of the parochial office?
Parochial office was occupied by the parochial board and the parish council. They both had their business done there, and this was the business of maintaining roads, issuing piecework to villagers, mainly men and women also. 'Cause, there were duties that women do that was issued by the post office, by the parochial office, and so they would have a time set, maybe 3 or 4 weeks after they were issued a duty to carry out. Then they would have a payday, and at payday all the people who were issued work to do, they would congregate at that office, and there would be a paymaster. We call him the paymaster. It comes to the pay bill, and everyone would get their money in cash, because that time they didn't pay by check. So everyone would get their pay in cash at that time for the work they've done. But before that part came about, the parish council or the parochial board would send out people, in that case they call them headmen, the headman, to inspect the work that was issued. And the headman used to ride on a horse and go into the interior wherever the work was issued. He would go there and see that the work was done and was done satisfactorily.
Talk about the process of breaking stones for the roadway.
Well, this process was done mainly by women. Women would throw big boulders out close to the roadway. Some people, because they live so close to the roadway, they break them up inside their property, because it wouldn't be far from the roadway to get to the trucks when the trucks come around to collect it. So they would break all these big stones and break them into very fine, very small stones to be used on the roadway to maintain the road for traffic to use safely. And in some cases, when they have new roads that they're building, they would use these same people to make stones to cover the surface of the new roads also.